Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Conversations. I'm Deputy First Selectman Nancy Haase, and as you may have already figured out on a pretty regular basis, I'm joined by Selectmen Sean Askham, Cheryl Cook, and Mike Paine. And we wanted to begin by wishing you all a Happy New Year. And we're actually fresh off our first board meeting, and there's quite a bit going on. So we thought it might be a good idea to give you all an update on that. We'll touch on the budget, we'll touch on some open space stuff, community center, senior center, so lots to talk about. And probably the best place to start is, since we were last in front of you, we completed the purchase of Ethel Walker and that third and final phase, and the Hudson property, which One Old Bridge Road. That also
just down the road from here.
Just down the road, right, hop, skip, and a jump. So we have, a lot of the conversation last night was around a sort of a perfect storm of things coming together around open space. The Open Space Committee just finished, or they're starting on their, I should say, evaluation of our open space. On the study of Ethel Walker Woods to find out the costs, the needs and costs for ongoing maintenance and things of that nature. And then we also discussed Dewey Farm last night. And
it's all part of that overall plan. You know, now that essentially a third of the town is designated as open space, you know, we need to have a plan to take care of it.
How we're
maintain it, how we're going to use it, you know, make it most available to the public, and and how we can maintain it in a, you know, environmentally friendly way and conserve what we have. So
be responsible.
Be responsible stewards. It's a big responsibility, and the Open Space Committee has a big task ahead of it.
They do. Some good folks on that committee, so they'll obviously be up to
They
the
are,
task.
and they're very dedicated, you know, to their mission, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So we can look for some planning to take place for both Ethel Walker and the property next to the Flower Bridge.
Right, because earlier in the year, late last year, or probably in the summertime last year, we talked about what are we going to do with Walker Woods? It was we can have an open space plan. You know, do we need to allocate some money up there? Is it going to be a forestry management project? So lots of different angles that we talked about. We had a joint meeting with the Board of Finance to kind of figure out, you know, what's the expenditure there. So. Rightly so, all six of us on the board at the time, plus the Board of Finance, you know, said, hey, we probably need to study this a little bit, get an expert to come in here. What's the feasibility of this? What can't we do, and then get some better ideas for costs. So I from what we heard last night, we're getting close to hearing the answer to that, and I think we're going to get it during the budget process.
Timing.
What we were talking about, which is perfect, right? Because then we can kind of figure out what's the capital need. Do we need to talk about it from a reserve standpoint? Which I'm excited about. As you know, I love talking about the numbers.
Love talking
about the numbers.
And I shouldn't forget to mention also Farrow's / Halls, and that sale of that and the proceeds from that, and that's a lot of how the conversation got started. So that's a pretty important task, and Land Trust has done an outstanding job, and I think in cooperation with the town and the Open Space Committee, and how we work through that in the budget process, because we are really into a phase that in the long term will impact our operating budget on an ongoing basis, and so we really need to understand how best to manage all that, but certainly worthwhile.
Just one thing quickly on the on the Hudson property, if folks have ideas, because we've heard from lots of folks individually, through our emails, and obviously we had some correspondence last night. Folks have ideas for what they want to have happen down there, they should get those to the Open Space Committee or to us, because that's going to happen rapidly as well in the next few weeks. The same kind of timeline. The Open Space Committee is going to come back to us with a recommendation on what to do down there, right? Because we bought it, and we told everybody we're going to have a plan for it. Well, now's the time to have the plan for it, as we promised the taxpayers and the Board of Finance. So,
well, and the volunteers on the Flower Bridge Committee have been wonderful. With they have a vision of what they think it should look like, and
we're tourism also weighed in.
Yeah, the tourism committee. So if you have an idea, we're certainly open to hearing it.
Which is exactly why we purchased it, because we knew that there was going to be a lot of cool things, a lot of interesting things we could do for it. But you need to acquire the parcel to get that process kind of going.
Absolutely.
So it's now we're into the fun part. So looking forward to that.
I also attended the Meadows presentation. Folks from the PAC board were part of that. Don Rieger from Conservation Commission attended. attended, and so there's, in particular, there was discussion at that meeting around the Hudson property because of the proximity and the bike trail and sort of the hub that is, and the connectivity of that. So that too, I think, will be important as we look to the monies that we allocated to study the creating a loop in and around that area too. And to mention also that Jerry Toner from Cultural Parks is also involved with the Open Space Committee in doing that evaluation. So we've got all the right people involved, and we'll get some really good input. And then, as you said, timing with the budget process, really be able to understand and forecast, at least if it's not an estimate, something that would give us an idea around that.
Starting place.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned Jerry Toner and Culture Parks and Rec. Mike and I had the privilege of serving on a subcommittee for the last 6 months, talking about some things I think we'll get into in a little bit. But what it ties back to
now.
with the open, but first with
all
open
yours.
space, is it really opened our eyes to how much other towns are spending on open space, how they kind of manage it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Some lump it in with their Culture Parks and Rec budgets. Some don't. If you look at it, we're massive in terms of our land holdings, as we talked about. I don't know if we're equal to, but we're on our way to what Glastonbury has, I think, from a field, from an open space standpoint. And if you think about it, Glastonbury is the largest town in the state from a land standpoint. And we're on our way there, but we're actually significantly lower in terms of our expenditures to maintain fields, open space, et cetera. Simsbury Farms and everything else from the Culture Parks aside. So it's interesting, and it's really spurred this great conversation I think we're going to have. It's going to take years to figure it out, but how do we want to manage that, as to your point, Sherry, before, of how do we become stewards of this land, and what do we do, and what do we keep, and what do we bundle up, and does that mean selling things like the Dewey property because it makes sense from a residential standpoint and we can acquire other land somewhere else or do great things? Again, I don't think anybody's in favor of getting rid of all this beautiful land that we've acquired, but again, how do we manage that? So it spurred I thought a great conversation at that level.
A lot of good conversation, how it all fit together, and it's interesting. Over time, you just keep accumulating these bits and pieces, and pretty soon
quarter your hair
you look at the totality of it, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
A third of the town.
But they are, and we should mention, they are, Open Space Committee, doing a very careful consideration and evaluation on things such as adjacent uses, habitat, and a lot of those things. So they're really going to make some wise recommendations to us in regards to, again, the connectivity as it relates to habitat and adjacent uses. And so they're really going to, come back with, I know, what will be a really good report for us.
It's kind of exciting that we have these folks as volunteers in this town
I know.
to undertake that. Folks
so
like Don
Right.
Rieger and Ferd Jansen and Derek and Peterson and other folks. Obviously Lisa Hivner's on there as well.
Yeah.
Just volunteering their time to do all that. I mean, that's
smart.
dozens and dozens of hours. It's
well, and that board
it's
is
really
from
great.
other boards,
Right.
folks from other boards.
Right.
So they're doing their board work, and then they're doing that open
On top
space.
of
I mean, I don't think there's an
Yeah.
ounce of trail in this town that Don Rieger doesn't know about.
Right.
It's personally walked on, so it's
Or cleared,
Right.
yeah. So he's we're very lucky to have folks like that.
But
on there.
speaking of the trails, now we've become a silver level bike-friendly
And
community.
that's an exciting.
And
yeah.
the folks that are responsible for getting us to that level, which is great. The
Yes, kudos to them. That
They-
was
yes,
fantastic.
did a wonderful
Jacobus and
job.
Ira Leonis and
That's
those
right,
folks,
Diane Moody and
Diane
all
Moody.
that. But they are a big piece of the conversation about how we use the trails we have. We're working on new signage, closing the loop for the bike trails. Making the new loop connect to the old loop.
Yeah.
How we fit into the Greenway project. So. I think all of that is really exciting for the residents of Simsbury and how we get to use our recreational space and our,
Yeah.
and
It
our
really
open
is.
space.
And just we'll keep the theme of recreation to finish out Mike's and my subcommittee
Yes,
work
on the
there.
yep.
Good.
The recommendation that came out of that subcommittee was to really structurally change the way it's funded. In the past, we really haven't fully funded Culture Park and Recreation because between the capital costs they have and everything else. And so we ended up this past year putting in a little over $200,000.
That's happened a couple of times over the last 3 or 4 years. So.
Between them raising their fees and actually now they're going to, the plan that came out of that subcommittee is that we will give them a $90,000 piece from the Board of Selectmen's budget.
Yeah, which you had pointed out, Sean, when you were giving that update to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, years ago, it was a larger piece. And through
was.
over the past 7, 8+ years, that
It's kind of evolved as,
it
you know.
Yeah.
went from the Board of Selectmen budget over to Culture Parks and Rec, and so,
Right.
but at the same time, you guys have done a great job, and Jerry Toner has as well, evaluating everything from soup to nuts, costs and you know, the drivers of some of those costs and how they can be controlled, and you know, wanting to control and not, you know, make fees exorbitant, and so they were conscious of that as well.
Well, and a lot of things we discussed then is, and just to be clear, there's no mismanagement that's happened here in prior administrations, current administrations, prior administrations. There's been absolutely no mismanagement. But it's a, you know, how do you fund something that's really up to the weather?
Right.
You know, and entirely dependent upon weather. If it, you know, the ground freezes in October, you don't get any golf revenue in October.
And as you said, they were golfing in December,
And we
so
were
we
golfing
got
in
a
December
bonus.
this year. So, you know, the first
extra
selectman,
fees this
the
year.
director of Culture, Parks and Rec can't control that, and it's by no means anybody's fault.
Right.
But as you look at a trend, and as you know, you look at an entire $90 million budget, you know, and you look at pieces of it, there are issues that need to be addressed, and rightly so. You know, our Board of Selectmen last summer said, hey, we got to address this. And we
Right.
kept talking about it during the budget process, and over the last few months with the Board of Finance and with other smart folks from Culture, Parks and Rec, Dave Bush and the Finance Director, we think we got this, you know, close to figured out. And again,
I
it's
think we're really on the right path.
Yeah.
it's really a budgetary thing. It has nothing to do with the management of it or anything else, but it's where to, you know, where does certain people's salary go? Where do certain expenditures go? Who pays capital cost? It's really a discussion about allocation versus anything else. So I'm looking, you know, by no means are any decisions made. It's a recommendation at this point. You know, we've got to kind of
Right.
vet those from a, you know, a high level and a low level standpoint. But so it'll be important if folks have, you know, input on Culture, Parks and Rec in town, and particularly the Simsbury Farms Complex Committee, which I think I can speak for all of us and the committee. It's an asset.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Right.
we
A
don't view
big
this as a
asset.
cost center. We view this as an asset for the town. And you know, there's some reasonable expectation that that's going to be part of the, you know, the tax-paying budget. You know, what's the right number? Well, that's what we're going to figure out and debate. So,
Yeah.
but as I mentioned, you look at Glastonbury, you look at other places. Those, you know, those numbers, it's all different depending on municipality. So it's part of that bigger open space conversation.
Well,
So-
and I'll circle back now, because when you talk about Simsbury Farms being an asset, the bike trail and the silver designation and the open space, all those things making up sort of what makes our town so great. And just to give a brief update on the Economic Development Task Force, because we keep, of course, all that in mind as we're talking about how we market who we are as a town. And so a year ago, the task force was formed, and you know, it took a couple months to get the folks pulled together, and we had our first meeting in February. And so 18, as you say, great volunteers, that's what we operate on in the town, our fuel, have been working pretty hard, and we're very excited about some recommendations that are coming forward. So some work on the website that will be refreshing and with a real eye towards economic development, and of course the announcement of the GIS system becoming activated.
Today,
It's
yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you know, Jeff Shea and the work that he's done, and Hiram, you know.
And Lisa as well
and
for, you know, on the
Lisa,
technology
on the
side.
technology task
Yeah, she's
force.
done a great job with that.
Right. So, you know, we're putting the marketing folks together with the technology folks, and with that, you know, I think we'll see some great work done on that website.
Right.
Working on goals for the Economic Development Commission to really go back to the 1995 Economic Development Study that was done. And so no document is too old to dust off. And some things have changed, but some things have remained the same. So we will be looking at that. We are looking at that.
You know exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was in junior high when you wrote that document.
Yes, you are
Yeah.
skewing the young on the
it
young
in.
side.
There's a little bit of dust on that.
But just to touch upon a couple other things that are going on there as well, we've done a lot of work, and again, thanks to Hiram Peck and the folks on the task force. The tax abatement policy has been updated and really expanded to include other programs, recommendations for an infrastructure program within that, and then also some permit fee waivers. And so that sort of trifecta of having sort of quivers in the arrow, I guess, is the new catchphrase to the old tools in the
Right.
toolbox phrase. But it is something that we don't have to use, but if we need to use, we can. And so having a policy in place like that for economic development, I think is very key. So we're close to that recommendation. And then the group responsible for that is also working on and should be finalizing at our next meeting in January the economic development evaluation criteria. And so that's just a tool for the Economic Development Commission when a project comes in to work through that checklist and say, and even provide it to developers ahead of time to say, here's the things that we're going to be looking for and asking about your project, and the things that make our community great and how you'd fit into that or not. And so, some good questions to ask and that kind of a thing. And then our process group is working on board and commission orientation. We used to have that. So they're resourcing what's going on in other communities and what we've done before, bringing folks up to speed as new members when they get on boards and commissions, are good volunteers again.
Right.
Well, it makes sense.
So, it does.
As you said, we run on volunteers in this town, and it never hurts to provide more information. People want to volunteer, but they may not know every little thing about how every land use commission works, and rules and regulations that we have to take
Robert's
into consideration,
rules.
and
Just come on in.
procedural rules, and
FOI,
how
freedom of
how we
information.
function. So.
Right.
I think it's a great thing, and I think the volunteers would feel more comfortable
Sure
with
they
more
would.
information.
They're going to get up there and work for the town's benefit, and you're giving them more tools to
Right.
be able to better understand what's expected of them. Last night, the Board of Selectmen, we talked about the new laws that changed that reflected how we adjust our minutes.
Exactly.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, so there's always ever-changing things, and that's the other aspect of this is also land use regulations, different things, decisions that come down in land use and how that impacts some of the decisions that our folks might be making as boards and commission members, and also evaluating the land use process. I mean, Hiram, again, I can't say enough, has done a great job, and where we are right now, receiving a lot of awards for a lot of the accomplishments that we've had as a community. And at the same time, there's always room to look at that and how we can better it. And so that group is...
Well, we've had some big projects coming online now.
Which
is very exciting.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
Tell them what we learned.
Big Y.
Yep.
Big Y.
Has-
We should all learn.
Yes.
Closing.
Yeah. And I also understand that the old Webster Bank building is moving right along as
Yeah.
well in the center of town.
And Dorset Crossing.
And Dorset Crossing, and the new
Big
Pride gas station opened up.
And they're selling gas.
And they're selling gas.
they are selling gas.
And various and sundry other things that are
Right.
in
A
the
few
convenience
other
store.
things.
Yeah.
Well,
So
lots of movement. It's been good to see.
and I
really
can't
good.
say again thanks enough to the folks that have that are volunteering on that task force. I told them that we're there for just 2 years to quickly move in, do some very good work, and make some implement some of those things and make some recommendations to various boards and help out staff, and then pack our bags and move on. And so I think they're excited about the second year that we're about to undertake, and moving through all that. So I did tell the board we'll be bringing an update forward to the board in the next couple of weeks, and so
Excellent.
a lot of this is will be airing, and folks will know what's going on. So
Very
So we
exciting.
got a few other things coming up in the next few weeks, right?
yeah, we do.
I'll tell the folks at home about that.
Yes,
Maybe.
that we'll be spending a lot of time
Lots
together.
of time.
I think we're
Quality
spending,
time.
was it 6 consecutive nights together?
I think it could be. So I'll let people
with
know
room
that
for more,
With
just
room.
in case.
Yeah.
we are talking about the budget process. So our first meeting will be March 3rd. And we will be meeting, that's a Tuesday night, so we'll be meeting Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evening,
Saturday.
all day Saturday.
Saturday.
On March 7th. And then additional dates as necessary. And we have met pretty regularly on these additional dates.
I
so
would
we
anticipate we will have them. So we
Going,
have
Yeah.
going into the following week.
we have a Board of Selectmen meeting that Monday,
Monday.
the 9th,
Yes.
and then we're back on it again for,
So the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So we have Sunday the 8th off.
we do.
Yes, we do.
Which would be lovely.
Wow. Should go use
Looking
one of those
forward to
trails.
All joking aside, though,
Yeah.
it's important that folks know those dates. Unfortunately, in the past, very little to no participation from the public at those meetings, and that's the time to shape the conversation. That's
Right.
the time to give us information.
Right.
We'll take it at any time, but that's
Yep.
the time we can do something about it. That's when the decisions are being formulated, not necessarily made, but formulated. We're gathering our information. We're requesting additional information, and it's really, really critical that if there's a project, if there's something you believe in, you don't believe in, we're not funding something
you want
enough.
more information on?
You want more information?
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Get in
I
there
used to
and
tell
talk to
people
us.
when I was, you know, a PTO president for years and years that, you know, April is too late. You know, if
Yes.
you want to come in and have a say, you know, on the Board of Ed budget or the Board of Selectmen budget, April is too late.
Right.
You know, come in now, get informed, and, you know, say what you want to say, because
Right.
this is the time that we're doing the planning.
And
Well,
I
it's really amazing, having watched how the budget got put together last year. You know, you really start out, this is what we did last year. This is what we are thinking of this year. This is how things worked out, because even with the best of intentions and all our good effort, it's an assumption as you go into it.
Right.
And as much as you try to have all that information together, you don't always. And getting the feedback and information from people, you know, I had a couple people come to me about some things they'd like us to work on that I'm going to bring up when we're working our way through the budget.
Right.
And then coming there and again, getting them involved in the process is a really, really good thing.
Right.
I also think it's important to know how it worked out. You know, if
Yeah.
you're a parent and you saw a program that got cut or something like
Changed,
that, then, you know, come in and tell us about it, or
Yeah.
come in and tell the Board of Ed about it. Or, you know, if there was something you saw around town that, you know, you didn't think was working right, or, you know, there wasn't,
Right.
something wasn't getting done, then this would be a good time to tell us.
Right. I mean, if you're not comfortable coming into the meeting, you can't make the meeting, email us,
Right.
call us, stop us in Fitzgerald's, where, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Wherever
Any
we
one
see
of the
us.
6 of us on the Board of Selectmen, the 8 on the Board of, the Board of Ed,
Yep.
Board
you
of
know,
Finance.
or the Board
Board of
Finance.
Finance folks
Yeah.
would love to talk to you about the budget. That's all they ever talk about. So,
That's what they do.
That's a whole other issue.
Yeah, but,
So I should mention specifically, just so folks know, those first Tuesday through Friday, the 3rd through the 6th, that's when we meet with the various departments, and there'll be a schedule
Right.
ahead of time, so that if there is a particular issue related to housing, not
Or
housing, but
the library,
yes, or
or
aging
whatever it
disability,
public
is,
works,
or-
public
yes.
safety,
Yeah.
whatever
Yes.
it may be.
So
trail or-
specifically, those department heads will be presenting. They'll be talking in more detail about their portion of the budget, and that's really a good opportunity to learn the in-depth. And then those later meeting dates, we start to kind of pull everything together.
Right.
So that's important to note for folks as they're getting involved.
And don't forget that we dedicate at least one, if not multiple days to capital, nothing but capital. So that's,
Yeah.
as everybody knows, or
Yes.
hopefully knows, the community center is on the capital plan for this coming fiscal year. What do we do with that? We know Henry James is out there for the Board of Ed. We need to
Correct.
get together with them and figure out what's the priority for this town, what makes the most sense, what can we afford, how do we need to be creative and structure. We know bond rates are really cheap. But that doesn't mean that we break from long-standing tradition. So there's
Right.
lots of decisions to be made, and
Right.
again, come in and share that with us so that we can
Correct.
make the best decision possible.
Right.
Yep. And I should say, just so folks can mark their calendar, our referendum looks like it will be May 5th. So that's the date we're working towards. And we'll have several meetings, like we said, but then also the budget workshops or the budget presentations, March 11th. Board of Ed presents to the Board of Finance. March 31st, the Board of Selectmen presents to the Board of Finance. So these dates will all be up on the town website. I know the First Selectman mentioned that she's having office hours on January 26th, and
Yep.
we're looking to schedule some things as well. And so we just want to provide every opportunity, as you said, phone, email, office hours, whatever we can do.
Messenger, prison, whatever you can get to
Yeah.
us, just
Right.
Carrier pigeon.
get it to us.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's, again, we're not joking. We honestly need to and want to hear it.
Right.
We're volunteers just like all the other folks,
Right.
and it's, we all have skill sets that we bring to the table, and there's other great people out there that have skill sets that can help us solve challenges and figure out these problems, and it's,
Right.
it's really great when it all kind of comes together.
Yeah.
So,
So one of the things I wanted to make sure that we mention as well is, and I know these folks have been on SCTV and in many places, is the Veterans Memorial. And to make sure that we just, again,
Yeah.
say to folks what an absolutely fantastic job this group is doing. and Ray Jennings and those folks.
And Lanza, and yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, we want to encourage people to support the project and, reach out to the business community. That's what they're doing as well. And so anyone that who is served, you can buy a brick in honor of their service. It's such a wonderful, wonderful way to recognize them. I know in my family we did a lot of Christmas gifts around that. So
that's neat.
And it's really nice.
Yeah,
it's a nice way to
stuff.
And that's going to be, it's great to see the efforts that they've made great progress, but we're so lucky to have a group of folks doing that for the town, because you're going to take a piece of property right now between the library and Boy Scout Hall that doesn't look all that great, and it's going to be a place that we're all going to spend time at, where it's going to become a destination, and it works in with the open space, economic development conversation, everything we just had.
Absolutely.
So we're really, really lucky to have those folks doing that, and obviously for their service as well.
And I know they're extremely appreciative of LADA, a local company who's been giving them a lot of in-kind work to help them formulate architectural renderings, to be able to get out there and show folks what their plans will look like and how everything will come together. And so it's just a very wonderful project. So wanted to make sure and say to folks to get out and contact them and offer their support. So,
excellent.
Can I give a quick plug for another group of dedicated employees? Our police department has started Project Lifesaver.
Right.
And we had a demonstration at Town Hall this week, and it's really great technology. It's a way to help caregivers and family members for adults who might have dementia or Alzheimer's or another intellectual type disability. It's essentially like a bracelet that, and if that person happens to wander off and cannot be located, the police department will now have a
means to track
a chip, dedicated to each particular person, and they have new pieces of equipment. So they will put your individual chip into the piece of equipment. They will hear a ping, and they will start searching. It's also available for families with children who have intellectual disabilities, autism, any type of disorder that might cause wandering. So I would encourage anybody who needs that type of service or is interested in finding out more to contact the Captain Bolter at the police department.
Excellent.
Excellent. And it's really a great service, and the police department has been specially trained. They put a lot of time and effort into this. So.
Beautiful.
So we're almost out of time.
I think we are.
I know.
I know, and I feel bad if there were other things that we wanted to mention because we had a lot to cover, but we'll be back. So we wanted to thank SCTV again and the wonderful volunteers behind the cameras. Thank you so much. As we said, it's important. It's that budget time again, so please reach out to us on that and any of the other things that we've discussed. Contact us via email through the town website or the town's email, or give us a call, and we'll get all phone numbers and different things that we always do up there, so you can reach out to us. And Happy New Year again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.